Hi everyone, and welcome back to Unapologetically Mum. My name is Emma, and today I want to talk to you about a story that recently unfolded, and I was pretty upset about when I heard about it. I've calmed down a little bit today, but yeah, I just wanted to kind of go through it and where we are with it, and go through some of the things that we experienced and some of the things we've learnt and some of the things I want to share with you so that you can help your person that you're advocating for, your friend, your adult child. So as you may know, I am mum to a young woman with Down syndrome, and recently she told me that her social worker turned up to a place where she was, so it's a council run day provision, and she turned up there unannounced and asked for a little chat with her, and they went off into a room on their own. She did ask whether my daughter would like a member of staff with her, but she declined that. Now, it's important to say that my daughter is deemed to have mental capacity to discuss things, and so we're going to talk about that because capacity is quite a complex thing, and even though she is deemed to have capacity, it's not just like, oh, she can just make her own decisions and that's that. There's levels of it, and there's capacity within support as well. So we're going to talk about that, and so I want to unpack what happened, why boundaries matter, why clarity matters, and why a clear care plan matters. So let's jump right in. So here's what happened. So as I said, my daughter was at her day provision and her social worker turned up unannounced. She said, oh, I was in the area and I just thought I'd pop in. It's been ages since I saw you. So she's coming across all friendly. My daughter is kind and, just sees that kindness that the social worker has. And I'm not saying this is a horrible person. I'm not saying she's a horrible social worker or anything like that. She's a very seemingly very nice person, but we all have to agree that there are conflicts of interest here, that she is a paid person that works for the council, for the government, and they are pushed and pulled in many directions. Even if they in their own hearts want to help and want to give all the funding and all the money in the world to your person, they can't, and they are bound by policies and budgets and restrictions. So there is a conflict of interest no matter how kind and how nice they are, and I think that's really important to remember and understand. So she took her off into a private space and said, oh, how you getting on? How you getting on in your flat? What's going on? How are you managing? So basically, a bit of a unofficial chat around support, around the care plan, and things like that, without anybody, an advocate present, which is quite naughty. And it may sound harmless, and if it had been that the social worker had just come into the place and gone, oh, hi, I haven't seen you for ages, how you getting on, you everything okay, and then moved on, of course that's fine. But to take her away into a private room where no one else is, without an advocate, being all nicey, oh, let's just have a chat, how you getting on, isn't okay. And here's why. So here's where it matters. It matters because these conversations aren't neutral, and like I just said before, these people are paid, and it's not a neutral conversation. And the current situation is that we are currently in a back and forth around the care plan, around funding, and around disability related expenses. They have told us that the care plan needs reviewing, and that we need to look at the amount of care hours and how things are going. So, it's not a neutral thing. There's a review coming up. There's things happening. So when a social worker turns up and wants an off-the-record conversation with the person in question, and like I said, my daughter is deemed to have capacity, so you could argue that, the social worker is entitled to talk to her alone. But, what's important is that actually, it's not on. And it's exactly why in our care, in my daughter's care plan, in the care plan, it explicitly states that capacity is there when she is in the presence of me, like I am named, and also independent advocates, and they are named. Her care plan states that these are her wishes, that she wants me there, and she wants independent advocates there with her as well, to help her understand and to have a backup in that situation, because things can get really complicated, as we all know, and tricky. In this situation, this was completely disrespected. So, she's gone ahead. My daughter's set the boundary in the care plan, written in the care plan, black and white, and that has not been respected. So that boundary has not been respected, which is one, massive issue for me. And I think underhanded and unkind, and it's caused all sorts of anxieties to myself and also to my daughter in the aftermath of that. So, here's why setting really clear boundaries with social workers and within the care plan, and also with your loved one, so that they understand. And here's something I learned way too late, because I really wish I'd have had this conversation with my daughter before this thing happened. But in fairness, I just never expected the social worker to do something like that. It's very out of character. In the past, all contact with the social worker has been prearranged. This is really important when someone has a learning disability, because they may need time to, once they have capacity, they may need time to consider the questions, talk to loved ones about the questions, what the questions might be, what might be being asked, so that they can really think about all the consequences and have time and not be feeling under pressure. My daughter has a real need to please people and say what they want to hear, and read that from them and go, right, okay, well, this is what this person wants to hear, so I'm going to say that. I might not understand all the connotations of everything she's saying and what that might mean and how someone's going to interpret. She's quite vulnerable to those things because of her learning disability. And so it's always been that appointments have been made in advance. We've asked for what the questions will be, what the conversation will be about, what the meeting is about, and so that I have time to talk to Ashley about that and to go through the things, so that Ashley is clear in what she wants to convey and say. And that was not respected in any way, shape or form. And this harmless conversation can actually be very manipulative, anxiety inducing, and quite toxic, even though it seems very harmless on the surface. So when my daughter just mentioned, guess who I saw on Thursday? And I'm like, oh, who? And she said, the social worker. And I'm like, oh, what did she want? what happened. My daughter then, found it actually very hard to remember fully what was said, what the facts were of the matter, what they talked about. She, she had a choice whether to tell me or not. I didn't know this has happened. Nobody had told me. The staff at the day centre had not told me what had happened. My daughter had chosen to tell me what had happened. But, when I was saying, trying to ascertain, what had been going on, she actually couldn't remember, or she wasn't able to fully convey. That caused her and me a big amount of anxiety and stress. She could see that I was concerned, and I was concerned. What has been said? How were the questions said? What has she been questioned about? What has Ashley said? Has she said anything that could undermine the care plan and the support that she may need? And maybe my daughter is like, oh no, it's all fine, I don't need any support, I don't need this, I'm doing all this fine on my own. And when actually she isn't, because support from parents and family and friends can be quite hidden and subtle. And my daughter doesn't realise all the support I give her. She has no idea what goes on in the background. She has no idea. She's like last Sunday, she's like, oh, I want to make a roast dinner. She lives in her own place. I want to make a roast dinner. I want to invite you over for a roast dinner. So we go over, but I've like printed out a step-by-step prep list for her to prep all the things, what the timings are. I've done an hour's work for her to do the prep, work down the list, check things off, to make it look like she's doing it on her own, but actually she's not really doing it on her own. So a lot of that is invisible. It's not seen as she's had any support to cook this dinner. We've gone over and then like subtly, standing with her, and she's checking in. Oh, is this right? Is that right? We're sort of saying, oh, go and check this, go and check that. So she hasn't, in effect, really cooked the dinner completely and utterly alone. There's been a hell of a lot of support to do something that seemingly to her is, oh, I've cooked a Sunday dinner for everybody. But actually that's just not really the truth. And so, she could have potentially said to the social worker, oh yeah, I can cook this all on my own. I'm doing this totally alone. I don't need any support. And it just not be anywhere near the truth. But then the social worker might be like, oh, happy days, we can reduce this support package and meet our targets and everybody's happy. So it's tricky. And I was scared. I have to say, I was scared, and I don't think I reacted that great on the day. I could have stayed calm. I wasn't staying calm. I was just like, well, try and remember what was said. My daughter was getting then all anxious. I was getting anxious. It wasn't a very good situation. That could have all been avoided. That didn't need to happen. And it's just turning into a bit of a nightmare. I'm sort of blaming her for being a bit naive. That's not very nice. That's not great. She's a vulnerable adult, but I'm up to my eyes in advocacy for her, and like these months and months and months and months of work to try and get her the package that she wanted. Had it have been left to the social worker, Ashley wouldn't have the package that she now has, wouldn't be going to the places that she wanted, that she told me that she wanted to go to, the art classes that she wanted to go to. The social worker, the care plan didn't want to put it in. I fought long and hard for months to get that put into her package. Ashley has no idea how long and hard I had to fight for that, and that it was her social worker that did not fight long and hard for her to have that in her package. No way would she have had that in her package. Absolutely no way. And so it's not that this person can't be trusted or isn't kind or isn't nice, but let's face it, let's be honest about it. They are pushed and pulled, and there's a conflict of interest here, like I said. So I then felt so I had to take myself away and just give myself a minute, because I was furious. I was furious, and I was crying. know as well. That's the other thing. I just felt so deflated. I felt so angry and I felt so betrayed. And I just was like, what is this? What is this? Why are you using these underhanded tactics? It's just not on, and it's not fair. It's not right. And so, yeah, I was in a bit of a state, to be honest with you. So then when I had some time, we finished our shopping, and bearing in mind, we're taking her shopping because she doesn't have the support in place to go shopping herself and for a support person. So we're taking her shopping on our shopping day and managing my own shopping and managing her shopping, making it look like she's making all these choices. But, we've got to check the dates on the things because she's picking things up that, need to last a few days at least, and they've got today's date on them and she doesn't realise, and things like that. So it's a pretty stressful day, to be honest. And yeah, so we finished shopping. She went home to her place, I went back to my place. I lay on my bed and was having a really big think about it all, and trying to get some perspective and just trying to calm down and breathe into the fears and the anxieties that were running through me. And then I was thinking, because one of the things that was really irritating me was that she said, oh, guess who I saw the social worker. And she's like, oh, I hugged her. I went and gave her a big hug, and I've never hugged her before, but I hugged her. And it made me so mad. And it's so nice, it's so kind, and she's so, just genuinely kind and doesn't realise, the harms and the things. And, that social worker received that hug, and, and it can be at times where I think, and I've had it in the past, and where, in social services eyes, parents, and especially parents that fight and advocate hard, can be pigeonholed as being a bit of a pain and being in the way, and maybe even classed as being controlling. And I've been called that. I've been called controlling, but I get called controlling when really I'm in the way of what Serviceland wants to do. So I can see why they think I'm controlling. I think long and hard about whether I'm overbearing on my daughter's life, and where that boundary is. I'm very aware that parents can be controlling, and I'm also very aware that some people need protection from their parents. I've known it where parents are uber controlling, to the detriment of their person, and it's a tricky boundary. And but everything I have asked for has been through what Ashley wants, what she tells me she wants, and I fight hard for those rights, and I don't get in the way of that. But it can feel like that to people in Serviceland because you are holding up the care plan, because you're not accepting it. You're saying, no, this is not what they want. This is not what's happening. This is the Care Act. This is the human rights thing. This is what my daughter's rights are. So I might be getting in the way of them just being able to do what they want to do, and they see that as overpowering and controlling. And they might say things like, well, is this what Ashley wants? They use that against us when they feel like it. They also use that Ashley has capacity to make her own choices, and I'm sure that they will say that Ashley had the capacity to say that she wanted me there and not. And so it can get very, very tricky, and I think it's Serviceland can get a bit overbearing and think that they control the person and the situation, and so you know, it's not great. It's not great, like, knowing that they think this of you. And like, because they must, you know, because I'm like, well, why did they do that? You know, you can be like, oh, well, you know, it's harmless and it's just, oh yeah, she did just call in on the off chance. But why did she go and have a conversation with Ashley about her support, how she's getting on in the house, and, you know, without anybody, when it clearly states in the care plan that, you know, she should have an advocate with her, and she wants an advocate with her, and that's her choice, you know. And yeah, they might say, oh, well, you know, but did they say to her, oh, you know, the care plan says you want mum here, or you want your independent advocate here, so, you know, is that something you want, you know, because I'm going to talk to you about this. How was it pronounced? How was it said to her? Or is it like, oh, yeah, can we just have a friendly chat? You know, it's dodgy. It's really dodgy. So anyway, I digress. So what I am really cross with myself about, and I'm trying not to give myself a hard time, is why did I not have this conversation with Ashley around, you know, if this happens, you know, what she might say and what she might do, so she's not blindsided. So after everybody has calmed down, you know, she came over for tea because she hasn't got the support in place for her to, somebody to help her cook at her house, so she's still coming to mine for tea, you know. So she came over and we had a conversation, and I just had that conversation with her about the difference between service-led people and friends and family and independent advocates that are there for her, and that, you know, it's not that clear that people that are paid to be there, and especially people involved in social services that are responsible for making decisions about budgets and care, you know, things aren't that straightforward. And I, you know, had that conversation with her and said that if in the future somebody from social services wants to have a meeting with her, you know, she is well within her rights to say, actually, no, my care plan says I need somebody with me, or, you know, she can phone a friend, her sister, me, her advocate, you know, and say, actually, I just want to call somebody, and that she has a right to do that, you know, regardless of whether somebody's coming in with a friendly face, and that she should do that for her own well-being and safety. So we had that conversation, and so I've put together some practical steps that I've learned from this situation, this horrible situation that I've learned, and you know, want to give out to you, so that you can prepare yourself and your loved ones to protect them from, let's face it, you know, a very tricky system right now. And here we are. There's five practical steps for families that I'm going to read here. So number one is put it in writing. So put in writing that you want all meetings and visits to be pre-arranged and to include your loved one's chosen support people. Now, you know, this was in writing in the care plan, so it shouldn't have needed to be also explicitly said, but make sure, you know, it is in your care plan, and make sure that you also then write and put in writing, and if your loved one has capacity, then to make sure that they have signed that also, or that it's been spoken in a meeting and the social worker has heard it, and then you follow up with the letter of it in writing so that you have reference to that. Number 2 is a reference in the care plan. So if it says that you or an advocate should be involved, remind them of that commitment. So that's if in retrospect that this is something I'm going to do tomorrow, Sunday today, and so tomorrow I'm going to be asking questions. I'm going to be reminding them of the care plan. I'm going to be reminding them that it says that in the care plan and this was not okay. So what on earth were they thinking? Ask for any notes. So if this, again, this is in retrospect, if this has happened, request a written record of any unplanned visits or discussions and what was said in it and what questions were asked in it and what responses. Obviously you may have to, as an advocate, as a named person in the care plan, I don't know, you may also need to collaborate with your loved one and say, I want to write this letter, I want to find out, so that we can go through together and I can explain what was meant by that and why that was said. And so they may need to give permission for you to ask for those notes. I'm not quite sure the legality of that at the moment. If I can just ask for it as her advocate, as a named advocate, we'll see. Teaching your loved one or your person you advocate for about trust. So have a talk at a way they can understand around trust and boundaries and about the difference between friendly professionals and personal friends and loved ones and people that are there to protect them and people that are professionals and may have conflict of interest. And number 5, I've got stay calm but firm. And that is also with your loved one if possible. It's like at the time it wasn't an option that was kind of available to me in that moment because my heart was racing and I was not calm, and I wish I could have been more controlled, but I am human and I was scared and I was worried and I was a bit triggered and I was anxious and didn't kind of speak to my daughter in as calm a way as I perhaps would have wanted to afterwards. But stay calm as you can if possible, and stay calm when when talking to the professionals about this situation as well. Know your rights. It's good. You can use AI to check out your rights. It's a really good resource for knowing what your rights are and to clarify that before you have a conversation with them and to preempt what they might say so that you have an answer. And I got mad, but I keep saying to myself, well, I'm not going to apologize for trying to protect somebody I love from getting the support they need, that genuinely need. We're not asking for extras here, just genuine needs, genuine support so she can live a really, really good life. And sometimes it feels like I'm in the wrong and I'm the bad person. They present it like that, and it's important to remind yourself that you're on the right side here, the right side of love and the right side of care, and that is never a bad and wrong thing. Just to wrap up then, just a bit of reflection that the whole experience has reminded me that sometimes people with learning disabilities often see the best in people. They lead with their hearts, they lead with love, they lead with kindness and trust, which is a beautiful thing, an absolutely beautiful thing, and should not be seen as a bad thing. The world, we all know the world needs it, and what a shame they can't do that in safety. What a shame, what a shame. You know, and our role, I see our role as an advocate is not to take that away from them, not to shame them about that, or to tell them off about that. I might have done a little bit of that the other day. Not my best moment, I have to say. But to bring accountability to the system, and to speak to them about truth about some of that system, and not to say, oh, don't trust people in authority. You know, I don't want that at all, but to have a real, true, honest conversation about the complexities of that to the best of their ability to understand that. So they're not just like vulnerable, and that we can have a healthy relationship with the systems, with the current systems that are struggling, and have that conversation about the current systems struggling, and then perhaps not being able to do their best, even if they want to. So I'm Unapologetically Mum. Thanks for listening. Share with me if you've had a similar experience. I'd love to hear your stories. Not to shame anyone, not to blame anyone, just an honest conversation about the messy world that this is, and the complexity of support and advocacy. And I'm going to keep showing up for my daughter. I hope you keep showing up for the person you love and that you're advocating for, because love and advocacy go hand in hand. We all know that. So bye for now. Thanks for listening. See you later.